Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here in the year 2015. Here we are, and I know how much people love the best of list when it comes to the new year, so I thought I'd give my little spin on it. Now, I know when it comes to Hearthstone cards, when it comes to GvG, I've done my duty of analyzing all the mediocre, all the somewhat good, all the somewhat bad, all the a lot of the really bad ones, and I thought I would go onto the extreme. We're going to go to the absolute worst cards introduced in GvG. And some people might have the wrong idea about this because there's one thing when people compare expectations to the actual most useless cards. So for instance, people think cards like Flame Leviathan are really bad because, well, it's 7 for a 7/7 and it can kill off your own creatures on the board. But have you actually tried playing this card? I've actually tried playing this card and it's really not that bad. The count to how many times it's actually done a huge favor for me versus a huge disfavor is, way on the favor part. I mean, it's like 9 or 10 to 2. This card usually actually encourages play of slightly bigger minions, and right now with the small minions dominating the aggro stuffs in the constructed game, it's actually not too bad at all. Now, there's probably better stuff you can put in your deck, but you can pretty much say that for most of the cards in Hearthstone. This is certainly not the worst. And when it comes to cards before they were released, I participated in giving Mr. Bolvar a bunch of shit. Mr. Bolvar's not too terrible as it turns out. Yes, he's a piece of crap when he gets silenced. Yes, he's a piece of crap when you draw him out. But frequently when it comes to playing Paladin Constructed, it's pretty decent. As it turns out, you can do some stuff like an equality combo and drop Bolvar right after. So you can have a huge creature after a huge board clear and basically win the game from a ridiculous tempo swing. And it's played kind of like a pretty good 5-drop. And in Arena, it's not too terrible. It's often better than most 5-drops, and it's a legendary, and sometimes you get to pick against shit like Lorewalker Cho, which other piece of crap legendaries, so this is a much better version of that. So, Bolvar is not among the worst cards of GvG. And another one, Gnomish Experimenter. You guys probably thought this was going to be among the worst cards released. No, it's not. Have you tried making a deck with this card? I have. I made an almost all spell trap hunter deck with a bunch of weapons, and because none of the cards I mentioned are creatures, except for the few creatures actually in the deck, this card is basically 3 for a 3/2, and you can probably draw a card. And if you don't draw a card, well, it's not the worst thing ever because you get a 1/1. Okay, it's pretty bad. This if it was a top 10 list, this is pretty close. So that's it for the notable mentions. But when we get into it, I gotta tell you guys that GvG, it released some ridiculously good cards, but it released some ridiculously terrible cards. And a few of them I thought were going to be pretty decent. And the first one is actually Target Dummy. I thought Target Dummy was going to be pretty decent because a lot of play was seen from Shield Bearer and the very zooey, very aggressive decks. And, well, not so much for Target Dummy. I thought that it would be somewhat of an advantage that it's a mech and you can kind of do a mech combo right away, but as it turns out, if you're using shit like Mech Warper, you can make the mechs that cost mana actually not cost mana to basically be way, way, way better versions of Target Dummies. So, what's the point? When I saw this card, I looked at cards like Iron Sensei and thought, man, that would be a pretty sick turn 3. Yeah, it would, but when it comes to balance and decks, there is no real room for the Target Dummy. And as it turns out, this card is basically a piece of crap. I've seen this in Arena a little bit, and it's nothing but a joke. This card is actually probably worse than Wisp, as Wisp actually combos with a few of the cards that were released in GvG. So Target Dummy, you suck. Number 5 on the list. Number 4, we got Flying Machine. Now, some people have tried to use this card. I've actually seen this card played in Arena, and in Arena, usually the crappiest of the crap often gets some play and gets some success. I believe I've actually lost the game to this card, but it really didn't matter that this card was involved in that game in any way. And some people have tried to make this card using Constructed to some success, but as it turns out, they made use of it by using Divine Spirit Inner Fire combos on Priest. And I have done my research. As it turns out, using this combination of cards of Divine Spirit Inner Fire, there's actually quite a few other creatures in the game that this combo works very well with. Just about every other creature in Hearthstone. So as it turns out, Flying Machine is still a piece of crap. Now, 3 for a 1/4 is basically garbage because often in Constructed and in Arena, it's just going to die to just the basic 2-drop plus a hero power. On 3, it's just not enough of an impact. The Wind Fury doesn't really matter because you're really going to have to go face with one attack. You're not going to be able to like kill 2 things and stay on the board, for instance. It's just useless. You have to combo this card with other cards, and if you want to combo multiple cards, you're not going to bother with a piece of crap like this. So this one is a massive dumpster. And number 3 on the list, Shadow Bomber. Believe it or not, I try to make use of this card. I thought maybe you can play some super YOLO Suicide Priests with, Shadow Form and Mind Blasts and just pew 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 and do a lot of damage and all that kind of stuff. And as it turns out, it doesn't really work because it's just not aggressive. You need minions that are sticky. 1 health is not sticky. And if you're going to play cards that are pretty much just throwaways, you want them to actually do something for you, not both sides of the board. You don't actually want to take 3 damage. This is basically a terrible version of Leper Gnome if you really think about it. Yeah, Leper Gnome only does 2 to your opponent instead of 3, but it has Death Rattle, making it comboable with Death Rattle decks and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? People don't even play Leper Gnome anymore because they have the Clockwork Gnome, which is basically a better version of Leper Gnome, which, it's a mech, so it has the mech synergy stuff. You can basically play it for free with Mech Warper if you want. It's got the Death Rattle, so it basically fills exactly the same slot as Leper Gnome. And the spare part in the scope of the game usually amounts to more than 2 damage unless you're playing Face Hunter, in which you suck. Though, this card probably sucks a little bit more. So that pretty much earns its number 3 on the list. And you're probably thinking, what cards could possibly be more useless than this piece of shit Shadow Bomber? Well, an unlikely candidate is the Ogre War Maul. When you take a first look at this card, it looks okay. It's a 4/2 weapon. I mean, half the time you hit the wrong enemy. We've seen some pretty crazy stuff. Sometimes there's a taunt in the way of the opponent who has 4 or less health, and you attack the taunt creature, and by some miracle given to you by the gods, you actually hit the opponent by mistake and kill him. Yes, it can do that. But in general, you have to look at it in terms of control and on what turn you actually play this card. The reason this card is so terrible is often, and it feels to me just about every time I have to rely on this card, when I try to kill a creature with it, it goes for face, or it hits the wrong creature, or it results in me taking a ridiculous amount of unnecessary damage. I mean, this is a warrior weapon. It's not like warriors have bad weapons to choose from. Warriors have incredible weapons to choose from. Probably the best, as a matter of fact. So why give them such a piece of shit like this? Yeah, it's a 3-drop weapon, but think about it, It's a 3-drop weapon, but you're not going to play this on turn 3 because their 2-drop is probably not going to have 4 health. And if it does, and you take a swing, you're probably going to miss anyway. And in the late game, usually what this does is run you into the Stormwind Champion when you want to kill their, 3/3 pirate or some crap. So this thing just sucks. This is the most frustrating card. I've tried it in Arena, and there's absolutely nothing good about it. I don't even think I've seen this card against me when I've had like more, maybe even 4 wins in Arena. This card will straight up lose you games, be useless, and probably the best use of this is comboing it with perhaps a Death Spike to trigger the Death Rattle or something. I don't know. It's terrible. Number 1 on the list, Hemet Nesingary. Now, I know when I started the video, I said that, you don't want to go to the legendary, that kind of stuff. Most of them have some kind of use, and, well, yeah, okay. But this one really doesn't. Hemet is pretty much the biggest disappointment of Goblin vs. Gnomes. He's a legendary, and he's basically just about every legendary that you open from your packs. As it turns out, I have received a golden Hemet Nesingary along with like 3 other non-golden ones in my original pack opening. I didn't really open that many packs compared to most others. And, I have actually played this guy, believe it or not, and I have killed a total of one beast, which is a 1/1 charging boar. So even in that case, it wasn't particularly good value. I don't really know what could make this card good. The fact that it's 5 mana and there are so many good 5 drops now, the fact that it's 3 health, which basically dies to anything, the fact that, as it turns out, I don't know if the Hearthstone developers got the memo, but it's really only hunters that use beasts, and some of them don't even do that. And as it turns out, there are 8 other classes, so this card, most matchups, is going to be the absolute worst because it's going to do nothing, and it's basically a 3 health piece of crap. It's just going to die to nothing. I mean, this guy compares other hunter bro big game hunters, not even close. Big game hunters out there slaying Ragnaroses, and Hemet's out there slaying charging boars or nothing, or himself against like a fairy dragon or some shit. To make this card better, you'd really have to up the stats so significantly that it's just a good creature on its own. For instance, if it was like a 4/6 for 5 with Battlecry Destroy a Beast, maybe it would see some play. But right now, it's so far from being good and so close to being, just the most useless piece of crap ever. Well, it kind of is the most useless piece of crap ever. That I don't even know why they even made this card. Yeah, I understand you gotta make some crappy cards. Yeah, you gotta make some good ones too, and there's some separation between them, which is kind of the strategy of filtering through cards and kind of messing with it, and you figure all the stuff out. But all in all, the cards on the list really puzzles me to why they were even made. But in general, it's pretty much whatever, right? You gotta have some shitters, or else you can't make videos like these. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys never play, never pick, and always disenchant the cards I mentioned in this video. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.